I've also added a homework log. I did that last night. So, for example, Monday's homework was to read and take notes over chapter 1. Yesterday's homework was to read and take notes on chapter 2 and chapter 3. And then I will post today's homework for tomorrow. So in the event, I know I've had a few people ask saying, well, I wasn't sure what the homework was. I had a couple people yesterday saying, well, are we only doing chapter 2? It's like, no, it's read and take notes on chapter 2 and chapter 3. So that'll just be another avenue for you to find what you're looking for without having to email me and wait for a response. So you can just have that information sooner. So with that, chapter 2, what questions do you have? I will tell you this while you're thinking about it. With the test yesterday, you're either one of two people. You're either student A, who got the grade that you like. Obviously, if you got a grade that you are okay with, if you got a grade that you like, think about what you did to get that grade. I assume you read through the chapter. I assume you took good notes. I assume you studied. You reviewed everything. I know some asked pretty good questions. Maybe you didn't ask questions, but somebody else asked a good question that you were thinking, paid attention to that, retained that, and did well on the test. Or you're student B. You didn't get the grade that you wanted. So on the opposite side of that, you are the best person to know what you need to do better. Maybe you didn't read the chapter. Obviously, there's your issue. Maybe you didn't take very good notes. Maybe it's a situation where you read the chapter and took notes, but really didn't spend any extra time studying. Maybe you left a bunch of questions hanging out there and you never got them answered. And that affected how you did on the test. So like I said, you are the best person to know how you did and what you can do to improve. So my suggestion is take that feedback and work on doing better for the next test. I will tell you that doing poorly on one test will not kill your grade. That's why we have the projects. That's why we have the notes. Again, not necessarily to allow you to slack off on the test, obviously, but one test isn't going to kill your grade. And I know we talked about working hard in the beginning, so you don't have to work hard in the end, or you don't have to work as hard in the end. You know, there's still plenty of opportunity to do well. And again, overall, when I saw the grades, I mean, there were some that could have been better, but overall, I thought the grades were pretty decent. Again, if you're missing a couple here and there on the tests, you know, it is what it is. I don't expect anyone to be perfect. In the 6 years that I've taught this class, no one has walked out with 100%. So the biggest thing is the 80% because it's a pass or fail. If you get an 80% in the class, it really isn't much different than if you get 100% in the class because they're both passes. It's really what you take away from the class is what really matters. So yeah, anything you can do to improve, make sure you do a good self-assessment. Are you doing the right thing, or what can you do better? All right, so questions. Things that you want me to go through in the chapter.
Are we supposed to memorize everything under the hood?
Not necessarily. In the chapter, I know there were a lot of moving parts in the chapter. You don't have to memorize everything that's under the hood. You actually won't have any questions that have pictures based on like, oh, what is this? Like identification. You're not going to have anything like that. It's just important for you guys to know. So when you go to open up the hood of a vehicle, a lot of different vehicles have things in different places. But the idea is if you open up the hood, know what a battery looks like, because if you open up the hood of any vehicle, you can identify where the battery is in every vehicle, because the battery is, a bigger rectangular prism that has two posts on it. So me knowing that, I could find the battery in any vehicle because I know what a battery looks like. But no, as far as the test goes, you won't need to know where specific things are. There are two questions that ask for identification. So I'll just tell you right now, one of them is the windshield wipers. Okay, not where the windshield wipers are, because obviously the windshield wipers are on the windshield. But to activate the windshield wipers, who can tell me where you would find those? At least one place that you could find them.
On the lever left of the steering wheel.
Say again, Ben?
On the lever left of the steering wheel.
Okay, so on the steering wheel, on the left side, which is what's usually on the left side of the steering wheel. Not just the windshield wipers, but also the turn signal. So in some vehicles, they are found on the left side of the steering wheel where the turn signal is. Where else could you find windshield wipers?
Mine's on the right side.
Okay, good. So you have a turn signal on the left side, but then you also have an extra one on the right side. And I'm guessing in your vehicle, Lauren, that's probably where your cruise control is?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, usually in a lot of cars, when they've add that extra one on the right side, that's usually where they put the cruise control too. Does anyone know where the third place you can find it? Not in a lot of American cars, but a lot of some foreign cars made in foreign countries usually have it here.
Maybe like on the door or something, like on your driver's side door.
Not on the door. Typically, that's where you'll find the window mechanism and the mirrors. But you're close. It is on a panel, though.
On the dashboard?
On the dashboard. Those are the typical places that you will find windshield washer or the windshield wipers. And again, most cars here do not have them on the dashboard. They're usually on the left or the right side of the steering column. So basically just knowing that will help you answer one question. Also, the brights or the high beams on your vehicle. Usually you can tell if you have the high beams activated because it has a little blue light on your instrument panel. Who can tell me how you would activate those? or where the activation point would be.
It's on a turning signal, and you like twist it back or forward.
Typically, yep, you could either, so you have your turn signal lever. So obviously up for right, left for down. And then in some cases you can take the lever and push it towards you or push it away from you, and that will engage the brights. And then there's a blue light in the instrument panel that will activate, showing that it's working. But that isn't usually the case in older vehicles. Does anyone know where they're located in older vehicles?
On the floor?
On the floor. So what it is typically under where the parking brake would be. So if you take your left foot and you put it all the way over to the left side by the door, there was a little button that basically you step on and it will activate the brights. And I think when you release it, it will deactivate the brights. So just something how technology has progressed and made it easier to do. So you're not having to use as much of a mechanical distraction, because even using the brights is a distraction, but a very minor one. What else do you got?
Are we allowed to retake tests?
At this point in time, I'm not going to really focus on retaking tests, as we are just trying to improve future tests. If it does come down to where it's more of a continual thing, I'll address that individually. But again, as far as like your notes and your projects, to me, that will be more of a way to help improve your grade. Because like I said, the tests are important, but the tests aren't going to be completely critical if you do poor on one. But if you still feel necessary to do so, just send me an email and then we'll talk about it individually. And like I said, that goes for everyone in class. But good question.
How do you activate the fog lights?
How do you activate what?
Fog lights?
Fog lights. Typically, most cars don't have fog lights. Some do. But if a vehicle does have specific fog lights, I know one car that I owned had them, and it was just a little switch to turn those on. But typically, most vehicles will just have, they call them low beam, high beam. Low beam are just your regular lights. High beam are, your brights. And obviously, we talked about how to activate those. Some vehicles now, you don't have to worry about turning on or off your lights at all. They have light sensors in there, so when it gets dark enough, your lights will come on. When it becomes bright enough, your lights will shut off. In some cases now, cars have they call them day runners, which just means it's lights that are on all the time, so you don't ever have to do it. And then it goes up to a higher setting when it's nighttime, or they might be the same day or night, but there's a light sensor that changes your instrument panel. It brightens during the day so you can see it, and dims during the night. What other questions do you have?
Okay, this probably isn't relevant to like the test or anything,
That's okay.
but when it says like under the fuel door release area, it says that it's to protect against people putting damaging substances in the fuel tank. What would that be?
I don't see it as much of an issue anymore as probably before I started driving. But I did have somebody ask this in the first class, but their question was different. They were asking, what's a fuel door release? Like they didn't know what that was. So if anyone does have that question, I'll answer that now. But most people know what a trunk release is. If you have a regular vehicle, SUVs don't count as much because you can open those from the back. But if you have a trunk, the only way to access that is one, with a key to get it open, or two, you can open it up from inside the vehicle by usually pulling a lever or pushing a button, and that will release the trunk. In some vehicles, there are fuel door releases. I can tell you in my wife's car, she has a Honda Civic, and most Hondas have those two buttons right next to their driver's side seat. So she has to pull the lever up to release the trunk, but then inside that, there's a button that she pushes down that will release the door for the fuel. And the main reason for that is for theft. So there are people that will try and steal your gas by siphoning it out, but also they're talking about putting harmful substances in there. So they say, for example, sugar. If you put sugar in your fuel tank, that will screw up your vehicle. Because what happens is the fuel travels down a line that goes to the engine to make the car run. So if you put harmful substances in the gas tank, the fuel is going to take those substances to the engine and cause issues. So, for example, sugar would be one of them. How somebody figured that out, I don't know. But those are the two primary reasons why there are fuel door releases to prevent theft and foreign substances from getting in the fuel tank other than fuel. All right, what else? It's kind of interesting that my 7 a.m. class is more talkative than my later class. I think you guys might be a little bit more awake. All right, then I'm going to have a few questions for you. All right, I'm looking at the Chapter 2 review. So if you would like to follow along with me, page 48 and 49. So question number 1, how should the pre-driving checks identified for approaching the vehicle, checking the outside of the vehicle, and checking the inside vehicle be performed? How often?
Every time.
Every time you drive. Now, as far as those checks, I will tell you a decent amount of the questions deal with the checks. So the important things to know about those is how often you should do those checks, because obviously those 3 checks you should do every time you drive. And again, I'm guilty of not checking my vehicle like I should. But again, I know I can admit that I should do a better job checking my vehicle. But the outside check should just be looking for 3 main things. Is there anything behind your vehicle? I know there have been times where, like today is garbage day for us, so we have garbage cans out there. My next door neighbor puts her garbage cans out, but since we live in a townhome, she puts her garbage cans kind of in the middle of the driveway, because we live at the bottom of a cul-de-sac. So there are times where I forget that it's garbage day and I get in my truck and I back out, and there's been like 3 times where I've smoked her garbage cans. And so now I got to go out and pick them up, or I've got to go out and pick up trash. And to me, that's just not being very aware of what's behind me when I go to back up. You know, in your area, might be backing up and running over a bike. Obviously, you really want to be aware if there's kids around. If they're playing behind the vehicle, you want to make sure that that's clear so you don't hit and run over a kid. But the biggest thing, looking for things behind you, looking under the area where the hood is to make sure there isn't any fluids leaking on the ground. That doesn't mean that you have to release the hood, just looking under the front of the vehicle, you know, and then checking to make sure your tires aren't flat. There have been a couple of times where I've gotten ready to leave to go to work or to go somewhere else, and I've got a flat tire. So, you know, things like that are really important to make sure that you do. Inside the vehicle, they talk about making sure that the seat is properly adjusted. If it's your vehicle and you're the last person to use it, that's one thing you won't have to do because it's already set to you. But obviously in driver's ed, that's one thing that we'll do. Every time we switch drivers, we'll make sure that the seats are adjusted. All right, so Maddie Grooms, you are out now. Number 2, when approaching your vehicle parked at a curb, you should what?
You approach towards the traffic or whatever. It says, yeah, face traffic as you approach.
Yep. Easy rule of thumb, getting into the vehicle, getting out of the vehicle, always make sure you walk in the direction facing traffic. And I know that may seem kind of common sense, or for some that's like, well, why would you do that? Well, sometimes it's hard to trust other drivers, and you can never be too sure. And you want to make sure that your eyes are on the vehicles coming towards you. So always make sure when you get into your vehicle, obviously depending on how you're parked, but most times you're going to walk in front of your vehicle heading towards the back to get into the car, so you're facing traffic. When you get out, make sure you head in that same direction that you walk towards the back of your vehicle. They always talk about making sure that you have your keys in your hand. And again, this is for older vehicles that don't have fobs to unlock the door, just to make sure that you have your key ready to go so you can open the door and get in without having to worry about any issues standing in the street. All right, Lauren, you are out. Under normal driving conditions, checks under the hood should be performed how often?
Once a month.
Once a month. is a good rule of thumb. I was actually talking to somebody about checks and everything, and I always recommend do it at a gas station. It's just an easy way. You're already sitting there waiting for the gas to get pumped. It doesn't take very long, so just do it while the gas is pumping. Carly, you are out. Number 4, in vehicles equipped with a driver's side airbag, sitting closer than blank inches from the steering wheel increases the chances of arm, neck, or facial injury in the event of a crash.
15 inches?
10 inches.
15?
Okay, it's 10.
Oh.
15 is for the passenger. So you were close, Ben. 15 for passenger, 10 for driver. Number 5, the top of the head restraint should be adjusted to a point where?
Slightly above your ears.
Slightly above your ears. Good. I like the fact that multiple people are trying to answer. All right. Number 1, short answer. List the steps involved in safely approaching your vehicle. So what's one thing you should do to safely approach?
Have your keys out.
Have your keys out. Claire, what did you say?
Check your tires.
Check your tire.
That would be more of a pre-check, but not necessarily as you. So we're talking about as you approach your vehicle, ready to get into the vehicle. So let's assume that the pre-check is done. So what's the best way to approach your vehicle? This would kind of be more so going out to your vehicle if your vehicle is parked in the street.
Check around your car.
Okay. Checking around your car mainly to ensure there's a safe distance between other vehicles and you.
Yeah.
Okay. How should you walk out?
Face the traffic.
Facing traffic. Making sure other drivers can see you. And then another thing is just make sure, be aware of any type of movement of both other drivers, pedestrians. Again, it might be a situation where, if anything runs out from under your vehicle. I mean, there have been times where, I've gotten to my vehicle and a rabbit runs out, or a squirrel runs out, or a cat runs out. Number 2, explain how safety belts can help protect vehicle occupants in the event of a collision. Okay, there's some common sense ones. Give me one.
They keep them from going forward when you crash.
Okay. And not necessarily completely, but it slows that process down, which is obviously what they want. You want to be restrained along the chest portion. You want that to be snug, but you also want that to be able to move a little bit. But in the event that you have to hit your brakes hard or get into a crash, it will lock up. But you want that paired with an airbag to be better protected. How else can a seatbelt protect you?
It makes it so you don't go flying out the windshield when you crash into something.
Good. Seatbelts are designed to keep you in the car. a lot of people think that, well, I don't want to wear a seatbelt because, I mean, wouldn't I be better being outside of the car in a crash versus inside of the car? And at that speed, you don't want to leave the vehicle. The vehicle is designed to keep you alive if you stay inside, because vehicles have crush zones. And the idea is the main part of the vehicle where you are, that is one of those crush zones. It will crush all around, but keep you intact inside. So you are definitely more likely to survive an accident if you stay inside the vehicle. Okay. And also, with staying inside of the vehicle, it helps to keep you securely in place in the vehicle, so you're not moving around inside the vehicle as much. What is the optimal seating position when you are driving behind the steering wheel?
Upright.
Okay. So if I'm in the vehicle, I should be sitting upright. Where should my vision be if I'm sitting upright?
Eye level.
On the road.
Okay, so I should be able to see above the steering wheel and above the dashboard. How should my arms be?
Bent.
Okay, they should be bent, so not completely extended out, not completely pushed in, which is why your seat position should be able to allow your arms to be bent at a comfortable position. And then they get into, they don't recommend 10 and 2, but they don't recommend that because they feel like your arms will be in front of the steering wheel. So if you get into an accident, the airbag deploys, that's the first thing that's going to hit, and where's your arm going to go? Back towards your body. I'm okay with 10 and 2, but not like this. You want your elbows out. Otherwise, they recommend 9 and 3. They say 8 and 4 is okay, but to me, your elbow should not be, in your body. It should be more outside. What about your legs?
They shouldn't be locked.
Okay, good. Same as your arms. They should be bent, but like your arms, they both should be bent in a position to where you are comfortable, to where you can rest your feet on the floor, but also where you can rest your feet above the accelerator, brake, and or clutch pedal if you have a manual transmission. All right. Number 4. Emerson, I believe you had a question about this.
Yeah, I did.
If you have your books open, turn to page, I think it's 36. Yep, 36. I want you to look at the bottom 2 pictures. Okay. Occasionally, I have issues with things in the book where I don't necessarily agree. And usually I can justify why they have you do some things, but in reality, it's just not the best course of action. This one I strongly disagree with. I understand why they have you do it, but it's still, there's a better way to do it. Okay. So what I want you to look at is look at that first picture where the guy is adjusting the driver's side mirror. Okay. So basically what he's doing is he's turning his head and kind of leaning his head forward to adjust the mirror. Then he leans over and looks into the rear or into the passenger side mirror to adjust that mirror. And the purpose of them doing that is to basically show to where you are looking into your blind spot. You can't completely eliminate blind spots, which means you should always look over your shoulder when you drive. But that's their thought on that. But my problem is, what happens when you drive? If you've adjusted your mirrors that way, what's going to happen when you drive?
You're gonna have to.
You could.
Go ahead, Claire.
You're gonna have to like lean over a lot to be able to see behind you.
Yeah. Take a look at the pictures. That's what you're going to have to do when you drive. Now, tell me a book that says that that makes sense. You know, you're not supposed to use your mirrors that way when you drive. And like I said, I'll share stories whenever I can. I had a student who, back this up a little bit. I had a student that adjusted his mirrors like this and went and took and adjusted the electronic mirror and then went over there, adjusted it, and then leaned over like this and adjusted their rear view mirror. And I didn't say anything until he got done, but then I asked him, I said, why did you adjust the mirrors the way you did? And they said, well, because I want to make sure that they're, you know, fit for me. You know, in their mind, they were looking into the mirror to adjust it. And I said, okay, so now that you're driving, look into your passenger side mirror. And then he did. And I said, do you see the problem with that? And at the time, they weren't really sure, but I said, you can't look in the mirrors that way. So then we talked about how you should adjust the mirrors. Okay, so I have my left hand down here to adjust the mirrors. So if I want to adjust the driver's side mirror, which is over here, I turn my head slightly and I glance at it. And I adjust to how you need to where basically you can hardly see the side of the vehicle. Most everything should be in the blind spot. Then on the passenger side mirror, on the right side, okay, driving forward, I turn my head slightly and adjust it that way. And then have my vision straight ahead. And then for the rear view mirror, I glance up and adjust it so I can see the whole back window. Okay. So now when I'm driving, if I want to glance to the driver's side, here and back. Passenger side, here and back. Rear view mirror, I can just glance up and back. Because again, like we talked about, mirrors are a distraction, but what kind of distraction do you want to have? Here or here? You know, one obviously is a much bigger distraction. Okay, so those pictures are wrong. Okay, please do not ever adjust your mirrors like that. Because again, you don't want to look like that guy in the picture when you're driving, unless you are looking over your shoulder to change to the right lane, or you're looking over your shoulder to change to the left lane, which is what you should do. Your mirrors don't replace that. They just help you. All right, any other questions? All right, then if not, go ahead and turn your cameras on. And
Oh wait.
let's see some notes.
I'll have to join on my phone because I don't have a camera on my computer.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Go ahead and keep your cameras on, and then you can go into Google Classroom and go ahead and start the Chapter 2 tests. Again, directions for the test. Make sure answer the questions. Make sure read the question, read the choices, but most importantly, choose the best answer to each question. And Maddie Glover, if you want, check the chat. I'm gonna send you a quick message here.